Hey there, it's Justin, and I just wanted to welcome you to the last final module in our lease option training video training modules, and here at the Real Estate Wholesalers Club. You've come a long way, you've learned a lot, I know you have if you stuck with us this far in the lease option training. This is an exciting training because this training is really, if you drop me off in the forest with a briefcase and a cell phone and said you have 1 week to make money, I could probably figure out a way to make this lease option deal work. This is what I would do. This is what I would do. So it's one of my favorite techniques, one of my favorite strategies. Like I said at the beginning of this training module, this is our training course. This was the first deal I ever did. So I guess it has a special place in my heart for that reason. But now we've come as far as having marketed for a property deal, a lease option deal. We've pre-screened and qualified the seller, found them motivated. We've then got paperwork from the seller, the lease option agreement memo. We've marketed the property for a tenant buyer, and now your phone should be ringing from tenant buyers that are interested in your lease option, rent to own, lease purchase, whatever you've chosen to label it, whatever words you used, they're interested in that deal. Now, what do you say to those buyers when they call? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about closing the deal and getting paid. All right, the phone has been ringing. You probably by now have figured out that you need a Google Voice number attached to your Google email so that you don't have 100 phone calls from buyers a day. Finding buyers is not difficult when it comes to lease option properties, and the reason why is because there's such a vast market out there for this type of deal. A lot of folks cannot qualify for a home. Maybe even you are in that situation where you can't qualify for a home, and it might be because of medical bills on your credit report, or maybe time at job, or maybe too much credit card debt, or maybe you've had a recent bankruptcy filing. It could be a lot of different reasons. Everybody's life is different, but you ever notice that? Everybody's life's different, but yet kind of the same. We all have the same bullshit. It just comes in a different, slightly, looks a little bit different. And so, there's gobs and gobs and gobs. There's a never-ending sea of people who are in the situation where they need a property that they can rent, but they would also love to be able to buy that property. And so the lease option or rent to own or lease purchase option is great for a lot of buyers. So these buyers are probably calling your Google Voice number by now, and they are probably saying something like this. Yeah, I'm calling about the property I've listed on Craigslist for blah blah a month in Hyde Park, or wherever your neighborhood is, or whatever ad, whatever words you used in your ad. I was calling more about getting information on that. And you can listen to message after message after message of what seems like poor quality people, okay? Do not let that influence you, all right? You need to have a system developed in your business to call these people back, or develop a system in your business before you call them to let them know that there's going to be a down payment. So you might put that in your marketing when you're marketing the property, that there's a need for a down payment. Okay? I do not like and I do not espouse what other gurus say, if you would call me a guru, which you wouldn't. But if you were to call me a guru, I disagree with the other gurus. Okay? And the other gurus will tell you this. They'll say that, tell them you want 3% down, tell them you want 5% down. What are they talking about? 3% or 5% of the purchase price that you're going to sell it to them for. Which is going to be about 10% more than what you contracted the deal for with your seller. Okay, so if it's $100,000 is what the purchase price you agreed with your seller, it's going to be $110 for your buyer. All right, easy math. Do the math. 10%. Just add 10% to it, whatever it is. Now, a lot of gurus tell folks, hey, tell your buyers they're going to need 3% of that price in down payment, or assignment fee, or option fee, or whatever, deposit. I don't like any of those words. I like to be just straight honest about it and say that it is an equity payment. Okay? Because that's what it is. It's going to come off of that 110. So if you said 3%, if the house was, you agreed at $100,000 with the seller, and you're going to mark that up to 110 for your buyer. If your buyer has 5% down, he's going to bring about $5,500 to the table. So then he's going to have, when he goes to buy that property, unless there was some lease credits being given to him, and I'll show you that in the paperwork how that works. If you decide to give your lease tenant buyer some lease credits, it comes off of the purchase price. So 110 to him, but then minus his $5,500 if you did 5%, and then minus any rent credits. So at the end of the 3 years, your seller is still going to get his $100,000, right? You see, you've built in all of the fluff there. You've built in the profits, and you've collected them in fees, all right? Or you've used part of them as a rent credit month to month with your tenant buyer. All of those things are great. I do not recommend establishing, though, that I want 3% or 5% in my buyer's ear. I do not want to tell my buyer that. And it's real simple. The buyer's call, I will let the buyers know in my marketing typically that I have a need for a down payment. If I do not mention that in my marketing, then when they call, that's one of the first things I ask. I let them know that this is not a for rent property. Tell them that. Mr. Tenant Buyer, thanks for calling me. What's your name? Jamal? Okay. Rick? Bob? Frank? Harry? Tamika? Doesn't matter. I want you to understand I'm not renting this property out. I'm renting to own this property out. Okay? This is a rent to own deal, not a rent deal. This is a lease option deal, a lease purchase deal. This is not a lease. Okay? So there is going to be an equity fee up front. Like a down payment, for example. That's what I'll say so they understand what I mean by equity fee. Okay? So then I'll follow up with this question. How much down payment would you be working with? And then I'd shut up and let them say. And see, the reason I don't recommend you say 3% or 5% is because a lot of times they'll come back and they'll say, well, I have $10,000 to work with. Well, aren't you glad you didn't say 5% on this $100,000 example? All right. You got a contract with the seller for $100,000. You're going to lease option or lease purchase out this house for $110,000. Aren't you glad that you didn't say $5,500? Okay. Here's what I would do in that case. If the guy said, I've got $10,000, this is just me. There's other ways you could go about this. If the guy said, I've got $10,000 to work with, I would say, okay, great. Now, how would I structure that? If I take all the $10,000, the difference between the 110 that I'm selling it to him and 100 that I'm getting it from the seller, then I'm getting all of my fee right now. There's no room in there for rent credits. He can't get $50 a month in equity. Can't do it because I took all the fee. I took all the equity out above what the seller's going to have. It's just 100. All right. So here's what I would do if it were me. I would say, okay, well, here's what I think. Why don't you guys go look at the property? Go look at it. Set up a time for them to go look at it with the seller. Okay. Instruct them to not speak with the seller, to not discuss any terms or anything, to not discuss price or rental or any of his background or history or nothing. Just say, and then I will call the seller and I will say, hey, I'm sending over a guy. What time's good? 2 or 10? 2 o'clock this afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning? or 6 o'clock tonight, whenever the buyer's going to be able to go see it. And then I'll say this. I'll say, hey, he's coming over there to take a look at it. I've instructed him not to discuss any of his particulars or the house's particulars or the rent or the price or anything with you, because he'll need to do all of those things through my program here in order to qualify for the program. Oh, okay. I rarely have an issue. If you have a motivated seller, you're not going to have an issue. And so I'll send the buyer over to take a look at the property, and when they've taken a look at the property, if they like it, then I will say, okay, here's what I recommend. You have $10,000 for down payment? Yes, sir, I do. All right, well, here's what I'm going to say, and it might surprise you, but I only want 8. Man, he feels like he's getting a good deal now. He gets to keep a couple thousand in his pocket, and that gives me enough room to be good to him and bless him with a rent credit every month, so that after 3 years he's got a couple $1,000 in his pocket as far as rent goes, as far as equity goes. That's what I would do. I'm not a greedy bastard. Okay, other guys they'd say, well, then the price is $112,000 and instead of $110,000. Okay, you could do that too. You could do whatever you want to do. But as soon as that buyer goes and as soon as I find a buyer that's got a down payment, and that's the conversation I have with them is, hey, would you consider how much down payment you would have, and how much are you working with? And if they say, I've got $1,500, okay, well, we're going to need a minimum of $3,500 or $5,000. Well, I've got $2,500 coming in 6 months. Nah, no, thank you. The right buyer's out there, okay? Now, when you find them and they like the house and they got down payment and they like the house, they've gone to see the house, and they call you back and they're excited. That's how you know you got the right one, because they're excited, okay? When that happens, then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the paperwork. There's a full lease option closing packet right underneath the video here for your download, and you'll want to, there's a disclaimer on it again. You'll want to make sure that this is appropriate for your area and whatnot. There may be, subtle differences, like I call the lease agreement here a residency agreement. Okay, in your state that may not be appropriate. Okay, so just you can replace these forms with your forms. The important forms are right here, the tenant application. And you can see underneath the title I have the player who's involved in this form. Well, this is the tenant buyer. You're going to want to get all this information. Why do you want all this information? Because they're about to rent from the seller, okay? And this seller will probably want to know some of this information. He may even want a background check on them, in which case he will have to pay for, or he will have to tell us how to have them do it so that they could pay for it, because we're not paying for it, right? But we'll get all the information that would be required for something like that right here, all right? Now, that we just have, that we just keep until we need it. The lease option agreement memo, we already talked about that in a previous module. That's how you get going with the seller. Now, so you should have this filled out already, the lease option agreement memo. The tenant application, as soon as you find one with a big down payment that likes the house and you want to do a deal with them, get that tenant application. The first right of purchase. Now you can see this is the property owner and the tenant buyer. When you are ready and the tenant buyer is ready and they have their down payment, their option fee ready, their assignment fee, equity fee, whatever you're calling it, okay? I prefer equity fee or assignment fee, but it works much like a down payment. All right, that's how I like to explain it. The first right of purchase. This is the option part of the lease option. You're going to have the property owner and the tenant buyer fill this out. You can do this on .loop or DocuSign or HelloSign or any of those, or you can do it in person. And you fill in the blank: owner's name, tenant buyer's name, okay, property address, term, Grantee shall have the right to purchase the property for, what is it? Is it $110,000? Yeah. In this situation, in this analogy. All right. You can also have it ratchet up. You see, or you can just set it and forget it. All right. Consideration. In exchange for this right, the grantee has paid grantor blank dollars for other valuable consideration. This consideration money is non-refundable. Non-refundable. Okay. Usually that means $10. Okay. And that money there is really coming to you. So that's why I put $10 there, because you're only going to give the seller $10 to do this option. You're going to get the option fee. All right. At the time of exercise of the first right, blah, 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 blah. Seller's right to mortgage real estate, blah, blah, blah. On down. Right to cancel. The grantee may exercise the right to cancel the first right of purchase agreement until midnight of the third business day following the execution of the first right of purchase agreement or delivery of a copy of the agreement with the required minimum disclosures, whichever occurs last. What does all that mean? That means that if the tenant buyer decides he doesn't want to buy, he can back out. Right? All right. Statement of understanding. This is something that you can choose to do. This is optional. That was the option agreement we just did. That's between your tenant buyer and your property owner. Okay. This is a statement of understanding. This basically lets the tenant buyer know and lets everyone in the deal know that the tenant buyer knows what the hell's going on here. All right. I'll leave you a little time to read that here after the video. Here's a residency agreement. A residency agreement to be filled out by the property owner and the tenant buyer. This is a lease agreement. Okay. Pretty standard stuff. You'll notice on the lease agreement, monthly payments can be ratcheted up after every 12 months. Something to consider. Or you can set it and forget it. Okay. All right. Pretty standard stuff here. Repairs. Owner pays $0. All right. Tenant buyer is taking property as is. All right. They've looked at the property. They've examined it. This is something they want to buy in less than 36 months. Access to the premises, utilities, vehicles, blah, 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 blah. All the way down. Pretty standard lease agreement here. Pretty standard lease agreement. You could replace this lease agreement with your lease agreement or the seller's lease agreement. Now here's an addendum to the lease option agreement memo. This is the document that you used to initiate this transaction with the seller, the homeowner. This is an addendum to that document, that lease option agreement memo. This is an added section. We're going to add a section to that, and it says that this agreement is an addendum to that document. Okay, this one here happens to have my company name right here. You're going to put yours in the doc format that you're going to download down there. You're going to put your company name there. All right, assignor buyer. Who is the assignee buyer? That's your tenant buyer right here. All right. On the contract dated, blah, blah, concerning property located at property address. How much down payment? $8,000 is being paid to your company name right here. All right. Assigner buyer, assignee buyer, and seller understand that these monies paid to you also serve as the buyer's consideration in this contract. All right, that's why up there above I only put like $10. It's kind of a moot point because they're putting money down here. All right, and that money's going to you. These monies are not refundable under any circumstance. Agreed and accepted. Here's where your buyer signs. Here's where your buyer's partner signs. And here's instructions on how they get money to me. Now you're going to want to put there how they get money to you. I would collect only certified funds. Only in certain cases where I feel it necessary, and rarely do I ever have the seller agree also on this document. Not necessary. He's definitely a part of the deal. He knows it's happening because he's just entered into this lease agreement right here. Just entered into this lease agreement, which you could replace with yours if you want. He's just witnessed the tenant buyer signing his statement of understanding, saying that he understands what's going on. He just signed an option agreement with the buyer right here, and you could replace this with yours, state specific or a more simple version even. Whatever works there where you are, whatever's right and legal there. He started out with this agreement with you. He already has. He's got all the tenant information. So, those are the important parts, the pieces. So I want you to print this off, look at it, decipher it, figure out what the pieces are. Basically, they're the application for the tenant. They're the lease agreement. There's an option agreement. And then there's a statement of understanding. And then there's which is optional, really. And then there's an addendum, which is your assignment. It's where you're assigning your document over to this new tenant buyer to collect that fee, that down payment that's going to come off of his equity. All right. Understanding the paperwork will put you in a place of confidence and strength when it comes to answering questions and leading the conversation and leading these folks through this. Man, these folks never done this shit. They don't know what this stuff means. Do you? Okay, maybe not yet. Print the stuff off. Start to understand the main pieces are, even if you create your own packet with your own specific documents for your marketplace, the main pieces are a tenant buyer application. Okay? A tenant buyer application, must have it. That one that I have right there will work anywhere, any market. You're also going to need a valid lease agreement for them to enter into, the homeowner and your tenant buyer. You're also going to need a valid option agreement for them to enter into, the tenant buyer and your homeowner. You're also going to need an assignment or an addendum. Okay? I use an addendum, but you could use an assignment agreement to assign your lease option agreement memo to the tenant buyer for that fee. Those are the pieces that you need. Okay? Sculpt it, make it what you need it to be for where you are. Okay? I know you can do this. This is actually a really simple thing to do. Get your contract packet put together until you figure it out. Use mine as a springboard. Okay? Put your packet together. Get it loaded up on .loop or DocuSign or HelloSign. Figure out how to use that stuff, because you are making your check right here with these documents. You're creating the paper trail to collect your money. All right? What do you do after they sign the documents? You tell the buyer, I need that certified fund right here now as you're signing it. Okay? If you do not have that, I cannot release these documents to you. Okay? We're going to have that. All right? Here's the application. Here's the, lease agreement. But if you want the option agreement, I'm going to need the money. That's how it works. Okay? That's how I do it. And again, these guys are so motivated, they'll do it. They want to do it. They'll bend over backwards to do it, and then thank you and kiss your ass for doing it. Okay? It's a wonderful business. Wonderful business. So, after you get your money, remember to call the seller, answer any questions, thank him, call your buyer, answer any questions, thank them, Make sure that there's an arrangement where he can get the keys and move in. Make sure everybody has what they need and everybody got what they need, and we're all good to go. Remind the seller that if anything happens and he needs you, to let you know. You might come back and do this again and get another $8,000 in 6 months. You don't know that. You could. Okay? I love you guys. And I believe in you, and I know that you're going to make this work. If you have any questions, okay, any questions along the way, please do not hesitate to email me, text me, hit me up on Facebook. Whatever you need to do, reach out to me, okay? We're here for you. This business here exists for you. You're my customer, okay? I also do lease options and wholesaling. I do fix and flipping. But right here in this you're the important one. Right there, right. I'm looking at you right now. Hey you. Hey you. Hello. I got you. Right? Now, I just need you to believe in you enough to put some massive action behind this. Employ the help and the aid of your wife or your kids or your auntie or your uncle or whoever that it is that's got some skills that you're lacking in, that would be willing to assist you without crushing your dreams and being a naysaying mofo and, like really wearing you down. Don't put them people in your business, but get some people to help you where you're weak. Like, let's say you're not very good at word processor, you're not very good at putting any kind of documents together, or maybe you need help with a logo. Go to Fiverr.com. Maybe your cousin knows how to make you a logo and he'd be cool with you. I don't know. That's your business. You make it work. Okay? But find a way to put massive action into this. Massive action. But more than that, and please hear me, it's not massive action as much as it is consistent action. Consistent action brings consistent results. And you know it's true. Right? You know it's true. If you consistently don't brush your teeth, it's going to consistently bring bad breath. That's kind of funny. I love you guys. Email me, please. Check out our live YouTube broadcast every Wednesday at noon Central Time. It's on there. If you can't catch it at that time, go back later and watch. But it's a way to interact too and ask live questions and get back and forth with one another. We also started some mukbangs. That's where we eat on camera. I'm looking forward to it. And we're doing a lot of things. Hit us up on Facebook. Again, this is the Real Estate Wholesalers Club. This is your fucking club, man. This is your club. You think I'm killing it making $25 a month off of you? I'm not. Okay? It's more about you. It's more about what I can do to help you. What can you get out of this? You can get way the hell more out of this than you put in. But it's going to require you putting some action into the things that you learn. The truths and the facts that you determine here. There's a proverb. In fact, Jesus said it. He said that, and you hear it repeated a lot. You know the truth, and the truth will make you free. It's not truth that makes you free. It's not facts that make you free. People misunderstand what he said. It's not facts that make you free. It's not truth that makes you free. It's the truth that you know. And in fact, it's the truth that you know that you're willing to do something about. Okay? If that's you, and you're ready to do something about it, then the rest is history. And it's a good story. His story will be a good one. Because you believed it, you wanted it, and the truth that you learned, you made application of, and you ate the fruit thereof. Love you. See you soon. Hit me up.